Che Sagoli. Uki. Koete Hopa.
Colamalsi. Dante.
Ani. Tanse. Sagon.
Stano. Buju.
White.
Atili High. All right. So, hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nadine. I am with the Stories team, and we are working closely with Greg to bring you this amazing webinar. So, for those who have joined us for the first time, welcome. We're excited to have you join us. As you just saw, we have had this is our sixth webinar to date, and we've had amazing turnout, amazing communities joining us. So before we get started, I would love to get some idea of who do we have joining us as well, and the communities that we have. So sorry. Okay. Great. So if I can ask you all to please get your phones, scan the QR code, and let us know which community you're joining us from. We would love to see some more names popping up. I'm just going to leave it there for a second. My colleague Mariam is also writing the link for you in the chat in case you are unable to scan. And let us see together, who do we have joining us today? All right. I see some familiar communities. I see new communities joining us today. That's wonderful. Great. Well, welcome all. All right, so I think we should get started. And what I will do is I will stop sharing my screen for a second, and I will switch over to our presentation. All right, a few house rules just to get us started. We would love for all of you to make sure that this is a space where we get to join each other, learn from one another. We have amazing speakers with us today. So please put your questions in the chat. Make sure that you are as brief as possible because we want to make time for everyone. If you're comfortable, we would love to see your beautiful faces and have a full screen of all of you joining us today. Please be on mute during the presentation and our speakers. unless you have the questions. And for sure, of course, as we said, this is a safe space. So please, no solicitation. Any promotional activity will require you to be removed from this. We just want to make sure that this is a safe community for everyone to get along and learn. So without further ado, let me introduce Greg Philliban, founder and CEO of ENVPMS, to get us started. Greg, over to you.
Okay, Greg Philliban here, the CEO of Environmental Project Management Solutions. I'd like to welcome you to this space. I'm so pleased to share this space with over 175 registered participants today. Our vision is to empower First Nations to protect the land for a sustainable future. Our mission is to transform the way projects are delivered within First Nations communities across Canada. And our goal today is to, as I said, to provide you with a space for you to hear from other community leaders, as well as Indigenous communities from across Canada. So we welcome you to get involved in the process, to engage in conversation with Samantha and Elvis, who are our speakers today. So with that, I'd like to introduce Samantha Noganosh and Elvis Thomas. And Samantha has been the lands manager for Magneta One First Nation for over a decade, where she has led her rather large portfolio of lands, resource, and environment over the space of approximately 10 years. She is currently working as a stakeholder engagement with, help me out there, Samantha.
With Atkins Realis.
Atkins Realis. There we go. And then I'd like to introduce Elvis. Elvis is lands manager for Woodland Cree in northern Alberta. And Elvis is also the deputy chair for TALSAA, which stands for the Treaty and Land Stewardship Association of Alberta. So with that, I'd like to ask some questions of our speakers and get them right into it and talking about how they're protecting land and stewarding land in their communities. So I'll start off with Samantha. Samantha, in your work, you've seen firsthand the many challenges First Nations senior managers face delivering projects. Specifically with limited resources, that's common amongst many First Nations communities. Has your project management training helped you navigate these challenges?
Yes. Yeah, definitely they have. Specifically, our Species at Risk program. Sorry, Greg. You put me on the spot when you started with me. I wanted to share a little bit about my First Nation. It is along the eastern shores of Georgian Bay, and it is a biodiversity hotspot, and also is home to many species at risk. And the lands department in my First Nation has a species at risk program where they collect data about population and yeah, I just wanted to share that because it will come up in some of my other answers. But how project management has kind of helped with capacity is, first of all, we can like share and prove and show that where we need capacity in our plans, if something's missing, too many tasks, not enough people kind of thing. So we can share and show where we need maybe more capacity, but then also it helps us to allocate our resources to each task and to to make sure that we've allocated our resources effectively, because with the Species at Risk program, people are out in the field, for instance, and then there's still things going on in the office. And so making sure to allocate everybody and make good use of the staff that we do have.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed is that, you know, with limited resources, and that seems to be the common theme across pretty much every First Nations I've ever visited of that 170 communities. It's always a common theme that I go, well, you know, if you have limited resources, then it's really important to optimize and maximize the resources that you do have and to make sure that they're working on the right things at the right time. They're all busy, they're all doing stuff, but are they working on the right stuff at the right time? And I think that's what, you know, I recognize, and I think you recognize that project management helps clear that up with the critical path scheduling and identifying which resources have float on them and such like that. So yes, for sure. Appreciate you bringing that up, that resource management, especially with limited resources is a big issue, and that project management can definitely help out with that. Okay, well, thank you. And let me pass a question over to Elvis. Got a couple of questions here. As vice chair of TALSAA, you have a wide lens on how nations across Alberta are leading land stewardship. What lessons can you provide, Elvis, that can guide other First Nations? Any lessons learned in building long-term structured approaches for conservation within land, and, you know, and particularly in, you know, that challenge of land stewardship and economic development, and that trying to balance that out?
Okay, make sure I'm not on mute. So, TALSAA, miwitin, piwap mi kanos, miyogi sigao, oiwitamik. My name is Elvis Thomas. I'm the lands manager from the Woodland Cree First Nation in Treaty 8 territory in Northern Alberta. I've been the lands manager since 2009 and been working with the Consultation Lands and Environment Department since 2006. So when we first started the department, it's traditional lands and on-reserve lands. So as myself, I grew up, that's me in the middle with my grandparents. I grew up in a cabin in the forest, in the woods, spoke Cree. That was my first language. Moved to the nearest town of Peace River, which is 86 kilometers northeast of where we are right now, Woodland Cree. So I remember going to school. My English wasn't the greatest, but I actually ended up in grade 1 because I spoke my language. But that's the main thing is, that's why I really love my job. It's keeping the traditional stuff going. And being a co-chair at TALSAA has been a great opportunity. And since I graduated from NALMA, National Aboriginal Lands Management Association in 2014, I've been with TALSAA since then as a co-chair. And as a lands manager, especially where I'm from, Northern Alberta, we wear many hats. It's not just one role. We're dealing with economic development, public works, health, chief and council. It's everywhere. And we have a small department. There's 2 of us in our department. I myself take care of the on-reserve lands, and my coworker, Lawrence Lamouche, does the traditional stuff. It's a big area that we have to cover, and there's only 2 of us in our department. So it's a challenge, but we get it done. And it's taken courses like environmental project management and sustainability solution courses that really help us lands managers go through the process. And one big project we're working on right now is updating our land use plan. So this really helps out what we're going to be doing, because 1991, I wasn't around here at the First Nation. So our land use plan is getting pretty old. It's time to revamp it, retool it. But the the governance structure, we are a land code nation. We're in our second year. It's a whole new ball game for us, and we're still in a process of turning over. So it's always a challenge being lands manager, but having a good connection with TALSAA and working with other nations across Alberta, we're here to network, help each other, and that's our main goal. And very beneficial, especially working with other First Nations. Like, we're here to help, and we're always a phone call, email away, and that's what we're here for. And it's good being part of it. Lots of challenges.
Elvis, are there any lessons you can introduce to the audience about how to, the challenge of balancing land stewardship and economic development? I mean, that's a $64,000, that's a really high, big question, but maybe some perspectives, some thoughts on that?
Well, it's just having everything set in place, your timelines. The one thing that me and my coworker Lawrence are always talking about is the work breakdown structure and getting your ducks in a row. Timelines are important, communications, especially consulting with your membership as well on projects. And it's just, timelines are key. Just hit everything. And if you have good working relationships with your local government, municipalities and stuff like that, projects will move ahead swiftly.
Mm-hmm. Have those communities recognized that that you're bringing this project management methodology to the project? Does that give you a little more respect, or do they acknowledge that?
Yeah, some projects that we do, it's always community driven. Like the land plan is going to be a big one. I can't wait for that. We're going to be kicking that off here pretty quick. But just having that communication with members, and they know that you're doing your job as a lands manager and that you're out there talking with the community. We do have projects here and there, but we're not always busy. But with the land side, it's always community driven with some projects, which is good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because they are the knowledge holders, and I like to reach out to the elders with big projects because they know the land. They're the ones that've been here, and that's the part of consultation, is communicating with your elders and membership.
So that's the key.
That's the key.
And showing them that you've got the tiger by the tail.
Pretty much showing your face. It's like, hey, I'm up to no good maybe, or it might be good. Give or take what you want.
Yeah.
This is what we do, and yeah, we always have good communication with our members. It's good.
Yeah. Samantha, so I know you have some strong opinions on this balancing land stewardship and economic development. Can you provide some thoughts, and particularly maybe now in your new position? How
So,
is it? Yeah, I'll let you
yeah,
go.
when I think about that balancing economy and ecology, it's obviously difficult, but it can be done for sure. The reason that I wanted to tell you all about the Species at Risk program is because it's a really good example of that balance. Particularly, we have a highway widening project that's going through our territory, and the highway widening brings they're still negotiating to happen, and so it's not there yet, but it will bring a lot of economic opportunity, and I know that my First Nation wants to participate in that, be it compensation for land use, jobs, sole source opportunities, clearing, grubbing, providing fuel, things like that. Like, the economic opportunity is it's something that the community is definitely involved in interested in participating in. But the highway itself is a mortality hotspot for our species at risk turtles, snakes, and not to mention like moose and deer and bears that get hit on the highway. So while wanting to participate, we also want to see that the mitigations are there, and the data that's collected from our species at risk program help to identify those mortality hotspots that are actually like along the highway. So where certain critters might cross really, really often, we can make sure to like we can negotiate for fencing to come up, reptile exclusion fencing and things like this. And it helps us to protect our species at risk, and which all of is bolstered by the data from the species at risk program. And so, yeah, finding that balance is doable, and it's fun, and it's community driven also, because the observations started by community members, like driving along the highway, and there's so much mortality of turtles, especially during turtle nesting season. So anyways, I just wanted to share that I think that's a good example of how my community was kind of balancing that economic want to participate, and also wanting to protect our species at risk and our critters and our friends.
Well, that's certainly a great example of how, I guess, industry and governments and First Nations can work together to mitigate the I guess the impacts of the economic development, because certainly that highway is it's going to bring in a lot of business, but it's also going to increase a lot of traffic, and that's going to threaten a lot of the wildlife. So what kind of mitigation strategies are in consideration or a part of the design that you could maybe speak to?
Yeah, so designing that reptile exclusion fencing is a really cool project that we've participated in. We have, again, the data that's collected from the program shows where critters might cross often. Unfortunately, that's based on mortality studies. So it is finding critters that were hit on the highway and recording that, and then be it time to create fencing. So we've designed fencing where jump out spots might be, because you can't just exclude them entirely. That's where they live and that's where they cross. So trying to make it accessible for them also is important. And I also heard a lot of talk about land use planning, and that's another way to mitigate projects with the data from the Species at Risk program and community knowledge. We know where critical habitats are, and then we just know not to build there, or not to allow projects in those areas, or to mitigate them.
Mm-hmm.
With fencing, I guess. Fencing
Yeah.
and avoidance.
Yes. Okay. Elvis, you got any thoughts on this challenge between ECDev and land stewardship? Any particular projects where you can think of where you've had to deal with that issue?
Not too many on reserve. It's more of the headaches usually come with the traditional land, like with oil and gas sector.
Mhm.
We don't have too much on reserve for oil and gas, but we do have a good working relationship. But this is where you do your traditional land use studies or TUK studies. I think those are very beneficial for off reserve and on reserve. It's when you have certain projects that come on reserve, that's where you start doing your consultation and all that good stuff before projects develop. And it's always good to have your history down there too, of so like Woodland Cree. That's why we go out to the elders, say, okay, is there any specific sites that we got to worry about? Sometimes you'll build something and you'll find something underneath the ground, right? Oh, there used to be like an old dump site or something there. Then those are the environmental concerns that we also got to look at. It's also working with Indian Services Canada to get your environmental site assessment studies done before projects are done. It's like species at risks and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
History is good.
So do the research is the takeaway there, I would say. Is
Yeah,
do
kind of
the
help.
upfront research, consult with the elders, find out what's there, what was on the land before, and what strategies were used in the past that might be.
It's also beneficial. We'll say you have your land use plan in place. Also, you have your community comprehensive plan, your CCP. That's where you do all the surveying and all that for future projects. Like we have one from 2009 where we have future development for subdivisions and all that other good stuff. It's already in place, and you just got to keep working off that plan. It kind of makes it easier.
Mhm. So I'm hearing that, you know, having a good solid land use plan and comprehensive community plan in place is quite beneficial and helpful to you as a lands manager trying to figure out how we're going to do things within the community.
Yes, and
Yeah.
updating our land use plan from 1991. It's a lot has changed since then. So
Well, yeah.
they say every 10 to 15 years, it's good to update it. And I totally agree with that.
Okay. Yeah. Often that's the biggest constraint, is not having those things in place to doing project management, like where to build the houses,
Yeah.
where to
And those
put our industrial park, where to put our administrative buildings, and you know, having the soil samples and things, because I you know, I know from our last workshop that we did, Sarah spoke about how, you know, they built the houses on clay and how that's causing all kinds of problems, and they should have built those houses somewhere else on sand, because the clay is causing all kinds of problems. So, yeah.
almost like that's on every reserve across Canada, because that's where we were put on is sand and clay pretty much. And we're seeing the after effects in some places already that are 25 years old.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes it is what it is. You have what, yeah, it's the only thing you have to work with. For instance, when I was working at Nescapi, their biggest problem was that they basically were placed in a swamp, and that hydrology and water are a constant problem. Their sump pumps in their houses are running like 24/7, and it's an, you know, just, it is what it is because where they are.
Yeah.
And you're not going to change the way the water moves. So, okay, so maybe just can you share with the audience a little bit about your learning experience with us and how it has supported you and your nation in land management and stewardship? So has the project management training helped you in your day-to-day jobs doing land management and stewardship?
Me?
Well, it's open to either of you.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, it's been very beneficial. It's just like I said, timelines are key, and getting all your documents and consultation and meeting with the membership. I think I probably have over 72 hours under project management with
Yes,
courses
yes.
with Greg, and they really, really helped me out. Not only just my job, but being the co-chair for TALSAA and stuff like that. Very beneficial. Uh, if I was in my office, if you see my background, I got like millions of certificates from training. I'm always learning. I'm one of those guys that, hey, there's training opportunity, I sign up, because it's feeding my brain and teaching me at the same time to do my job and do it right.
Samantha.
Me too. I'm completely also a sponge. I love to learn. So yeah, also spent a lot of time learning from Greg. Um, and he's always given us stars, which is also awesome. I'm glad you brought your star along with you today. It's been a long time actually since I participated in
There
training,
you
and it's
go.
been a long time
Another
since I got a star, so I appreciate that. But yeah, definitely it helps me. I think one of my biggest takeaways, that's an understatement, but one big takeaway is stakeholders and that definition, and kind of sharing with other people that I think that that our lands and our species are a stakeholder in itself. And so being able to speak for them is important. Like, stakeholder management is a big part of project management, and so then when we include our lands and species and our critters, then it just kind of broadens that whole scope and thought and efforts in our projects.
Yeah, for sure. I've always been perplexed why we have an online stakeholder course and it doesn't get much participation. I've just never, you know, they're so important. They're so critical. Their influence and impact on projects, and being able to analyze them and find out what their needs are and their expectations is, and how we're going to properly management, how we're going to move them from a positive to a more positive. How are we going to take a negative and minimally at least turn them to a supporter, or at least and hopefully turn them into a positive stakeholder. And learning how to do that. I mean, like, how am I supposed to know what that stakeholder needs and expects, and how am I going to manage that? Is a skill all by itself. So, yeah, I've always been perplexed why we have so little take up in that online course. So I'll put that out to the audience and encourage you to take a look at our stakeholder management course. It's a pretty short course. You can take it online. Okay. So from your perspective, this is open to both of you. From your perspectives, what role does strong project management play in ensuring that land and cultural conservation initiatives remain sustainable and impactful for generations? So how do you see project management and, just delivering on a project, but how does it maintain its continuity over time? Or does it?
Well, I'd say documenting your stuff when you do traditional site assessments, so on reserve and off reserve, just getting that knowledge, being a project manager, documenting everything, like I always stress, is important. And I just want to show this. This is how I kind of got started. If you see this right here, that's a 100-year-old clay stove, still intact. So this is how much it's sunk within 100 years, this old cabin site. So this is one of the projects I first started before I became a lands manager. Was I was timber cruising, looking at historical sites, documenting, GPSing everything, then bringing it back to the office here and putting everything into the computer, GPS coordinates, documenting everything, whether it be wagon trails, cabin sites, hunting camps, anything that you can document, even the history on reserve, like old buildings. Document everything, keep a record, and always stress, always talk with your elders and get permission to record their stories, because once they're lost, they're lost. And that's one thing I always regretted growing up, is documenting the stories my grandparents told me, because I lost a lot of good knowledge, information from them. And I was young, and didn't write stuff down. But as you get older, you realize, hey, documenting is key, and I think it's really beneficial, and that's what you do, is write everything down. And taking this course really opened my eyes to start documenting more, because sometimes you'll forget things, right? And it's good to have it on record.
Yeah, I better give you a star for that. Lessons learned captured, right? That's a success factor. I mean, often we think of project management as critical success factors as being scope, schedule, cost, and quality. But in large corporations, actually, lessons learned is the big success factor. Okay.
And you can actually get funding for projects like this when you work with companies. Say, okay, you want to do a TLU study. Let's get this done and let's keep our historical sites safe, off and on reserve.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think that like my community is run mostly by funded programs and projects. Like it's a lot of applying for funds and then reporting back. So to that point of writing everything down, like if you can explain to the funder what you want to do, here's my plan, and then execute said plan, and then report back that you did it, it helps to build relationships with funders and helps in continuity of like any programs that you have, be it programs and services for community or conservation efforts, things like that.
So what I'm hearing, Samantha, is that, putting together a structured project proposal, outlining scope and the schedule and the costs in a structured written proposal is helping getting more funding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. The funders want to see, you know, that the actual project proposal that you submit has got all the ducks in order. The scope, the schedule, the costs, the risks, the background, the need, the problems it's going to solve. So yes, so that's critical. Governance document and project management is to put that all together. And so that's the project charter, and having that is helping drive more funding. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty wrapped up my questions to you, because I want to leave lots of time for the audience, because I know that's why they come to these things. They don't want to just listen to me. They want to listen. They have specific questions that they would like to ask. So I'd like to open that up. So I'm going to turn it over to Nadine just to start that process going.
All right. Well, thank you very much to our incredible speakers, and thank you, Greg, for that. We will be opening the floor for questions in a few minutes. I do have a few announcements to make so that we can all get a sense of what this webinar series is all about. So, Greg and ENVPMS wanted to connect even further with the communities that they have been serving, over 170 communities. So to do that, he came up with the idea of project management webinar series, and that's what we're helping him with. So every 6 weeks, we have a topic that is of importance to the communities, whether he's heard of those from the workshops that he's done, and you've seen there are workshops that happen in Edmonton, Toronto, and these are also happening again. So next up, we have on the 28th of October, we are talking about UNDRIP, which is a very, very important topic, and I will be sharing some more information about that. We will also be discussing looking at how to mesh or bring together Indigenous knowledge and Western methodologies when it comes to project management. So that's coming up in December, and we will continue to have and update you all of what's coming up. Now, part of what we like to do is to make sure that we hear from the audience and we hear about what you want to learn more about and what you're more interested in. So if I can ask you, please, once again, to get your cameras out, scan the QR code, tell us what your biggest challenges are in managing projects. We've heard about the importance of documentation. We've heard about stakeholder engagement, funding. So if you can take a few moments and answer that. My colleague has also shared the link for you to click on it if you're unable to scan the code. I know that Greg, recently you were talking about Edmonton and the workshop that you had in Edmonton, and they had some challenges with, I think, political interference or something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. That, you know, one of the biggest challenges sometimes in the community is the community itself, unfortunately. And you know, it's the political interference that different political folks in the community have different agendas. I just spoke with a client this morning, you know, where the election was he felt it was kind of rigged, and you know, so, you know, that creates animosity within the community, between families, between clans, and that sometimes can be some of the biggest challenges within the community. Is just, well, that's their idea, and because they're with that family, we don't like it. So, you know, how does project management overcome that political influence? And we talk about that in the course. I talk about giving the projects air cover, tying the projects to strategic plan, tying the project to comprehensive community plan, tying the project to the organization's mission and vision, so that when politicians change across the time, especially long projects like land use planning and First Nations land management, And as the politicians change and they say, well, why are we doing that? Forget that. I'm in now. Forget that. We'll do this. That you need to give the projects air cover. And we talk about that in the course about how to do that, how to build that into the project proposal, because it's difficult for politicians to say, well, we can't do that. And you say, well, it's aligned with strategic plan, or it's aligned with the comprehensive community development plan. How can you cancel a project that is aligned with the mission and vision and strategy of the community? So that gives projects air cover. So that we address in the course, in our planning essentials course. And, this is where I introduce, in a 1-hour module, stakeholder management. So, finding out those politicians that for whatever reason are negative to the project, and then thinking about a management plan for how you're going to at least convert them from perhaps being negative to at least a supporter or even neutral, and even possibly turning them into positive. And that takes some thought. And that's where stakeholder analysis comes in. And that's why I'm always perplexed that online stakeholder management course doesn't get as much participation as because that's one of the ways that you can solve that political interference problem, is by analyzing their negativity and finding out what's at the root cause of that and how can we flip that around. Sometimes it's very simple. Sometimes it's as simple as involving them in the committee, the steering committee for the project. Or sometimes it's as important as just, well, we're going to have a big ceremony at the end of the project, and we'd like to invite you to participate to show that you were involved. And there's going to be a rock with a ceremonial plaque that shows all of the leadership that was involved in delivering this project. So sometimes it's about stroking egos, which politicians actually like a lot, if you haven't noticed. So there's some simple things to dealing with that political challenge.
And I think one of the things that we do have coming up that may help with certain challenges, specifically with land use planning, is the workshop we're running, or Greg and his team are running another virtual workshop, which runs November 18th to December 11th, every Tuesday and Thursday. So he will be covering a lot about stakeholder management, documentation, work back schedules, and really getting us into that mode of project management. So if you're interested in that, you can feel free to register and scan. I believe my colleague is also going to be entering in the link. And then our next webinar, our next webinar, like I mentioned, is UNDRIP. And what we're going to be doing is we actually have on the 28th of October, we're featuring Tyler Sack. He's the Director of Aquatic Resources and Fisheries. And he will be talking and providing us with some practical information about aligning project practices and community priorities, all while making sure that Indigenous voices are heard and centered. So that is expected to be a very interesting webinar coming up. So please also feel free to register from today. You will all be receiving emails, of course, and newsletters announcing our webinars and workshops. So I think
just a quick note, Nadine, on
Yes.
that. Yeah, for instance, Tyler, he's with the Confederacy of Mainland Micmacs of Nova Scotia, and their biggest challenges is the fisheries. So I'm sure you've all heard the news over decades about the conflict between commercial fishery and First Nations fishery, treaty rights. We have treaty rights to fish. Why are the commercial fisheries getting all of the licenses? We're out there fishing, and there's been direct, conflict between fisheries and First Nations fisheries. And how does UNDRIP support what Tyler's trying to do is make sure that First Nations fisheries get the same opportunities that commercial fishermen are getting on the East Coast. So he'll talk about how UNDRIP fits into that, because he is the aquatics. He's the director of their aquatics resources department. So that's going to be really interesting to see how he's applying UNDRIP and treaty in his battle against the feds and the province's fisheries organizations. So if you can get into that, that'd be great. Nadine, back to you.
So please scan, register. We will hopefully see you there. Now I see a lot of questions in the chat. So what I am going to do is I will hand over this discussion to Wahida from ENVPMS, who will open the floor for questions. Wahida, over to you.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Elvis, for being here and participating today and all of your efforts and sharing your knowledge so openly. So I'm going to invite Jason McDonald on. Jason has a question. Jason, would you like to unmute and ask your question? You actually have two questions. Would you like to ask your two questions?
Sure. So one of my questions, a lot like, well, I'm from CMM. We're from Confederacy Mainland Mi'kmaq. My community is Sebeganegati First Nation. My first question, again, I'll go back to who I am and what I used to be. I'm a lands manager. I used to be a lands manager with Sebeganegati. I graduated from U of S and NALMA probably about 13 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, maybe 14. I'm not 100% sure. So my question is, how do you integrate traditional land use knowledge into zoning or land designation decisions? And my second question, they all kind of rolled together. My second question was, how do you ensure the land use plans align with both ecological sustainability and First Nation community values? I understand my own answer, but at the same time, I just want to hear a different perspective.
Elvis, I'm not sure if you wanted to take a stab at that.
I could. With the land designation, I did 9 so far. So it's going all back to your history of the land, the uses. This is where I reach out to my elders and people that live in the communities. Those are the first ones I reached out to, or the knowledge holders, I call them. And yeah, we did 9 land designations, and we did come across a parcel where there used to be an old landfill. So communicating like that before the project started really helped us and saved us money. It's like, okay, can't really build anything there. It's kind of a damaged area. And that can go with your traditional lands as well. It's getting the right people that know the area. Those are the ones you want to target, that have been there. And you don't want to hire somebody. I seen another question there is like, well, how do you pick your elders when you do the consultation process? You pick the ones that been there and you know that lived in that area. Those are the ones we target. That's where you get all your good history lessons from. That's a land designation question.
I would also say community engagement. The community knows best. And so when my community is also a land code First Nation, and in order to even ratify our land use plan, it would have to be voted on. And so I always figure, like, if it's not a 100% yes vote, then I didn't do a good job in communicating or receiving information to and from community. So definitely community consultation is like a big piece in that, but then also learning as much as you can about yourself, like Elvis said, history, but also any scientific data that you can collect that would help in your planning also.
When moving forward and taking our biodiversity and conservations into just as we move forward, within purchasing. Like myself, I work for Sispede Duminish Gamitkanu Conservancy. It's a Mi'kmaq-driven conservancy. So I moved from the lands manager position to actually over to CMM to help develop and create a conservancy. They've had a lot of people that worked in this area, and they did a wonderful job. And then they just brought me in to help with procurement and buy lands. I bought lands for ATR before, and purchased for other First Nation communities, even some in Saskatchewan and in Winnipeg, just friends that I knew. But moving forward, how do we move forward in the light of conservancy at the same time, using what we learned as lands managers, but also taking the ecological sustainable way and putting the community values? Has anyone ever done that? These are just questions if anyone's ever walked down those roads.
Ben, we're looking at the ATR process because we are running out of capacity. And one of the things we've been kind of thinking about when we do our ATR for new reserve lands is maybe have a land selection where you don't develop anything for future generations. Yeah. So it's like a national park or something, but it's set aside for you for 3 generations down the road, like for security or something. That's something maybe you could do. It's just an idea.
Well, that's how we've been doing it on this end. So
my community partnered with like a land trust. So kind of like that's in that same breath of designating land specifically to conservation. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, was our partnership with the Biosphere Reserve. Mm-hmm. And then partnerships with land trusts, and kind of being able to secure and also like spreading awareness of conservation, like making sure that once you have that ripple effect of we're starting to do something here and we're protecting this, and development can still occur in some cases, but we're just doing it in a very like protective way and a safe, sustainable way.
Yeah, because one of the main problems that we have on this end is our First Nations here. I got to stop because I'll keep talking. That's my problem. On our end, we don't have land treaties. Mi'kmaq don't have land treaties. We have peace and friendship treaties. So we don't have TLE. We don't have that money or any monies for land because the government's been screwing us for years. And when it comes to CPCAD, with a lot of the lands that you end up picking up, I was all for CPCAD, but it's an actual GIS type platform for all the governments and the numbers for the conservancy lands. I've been noticing, especially on our end down here, is the government can put everything to Crown, to province Crown, provincial Crown, and Crown is set aside for the Mi'kmaq, not the Mi'kmaq, but the First Nations across Canada. It's part of the Indian Act that we're all kind of like trying to either get out of or hoping it's going to protect the shit out of us when we do something wrong. So coming from Sabaganagity, if you guys know who Sabaganagity is, my community is the one that's always in the news for fighting our treaty and fighting for our fishing. But moving forward in that is just, I just like to hear myself talk half the time. So I don't know what to say now. I'm lost.
We're going to cut you off.
Thank you for sharing.
Just keep fighting. Just keep fighting. Don't give up.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for your questions. Appreciate those. And to tie in Bill Morrison, Elvis, I know you touched upon his question briefly, but Bill Morris, would you like to come on and unmute yourself for your question? You're still here.
Hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I have, it's an extension of Jason's question a bit there. Elvis's, your comment was with regard to consultation with elders within community. We do that a lot, but the difficulty or some of the things that we run into is when the consultation then has to bring in other people from outside who not only are not familiar with the land, but don't even want to come to the land. I mean, I really appreciate your documentation in terms of photos and showing existence and history and all that stuff. But is there any point in time, or is there a strategy that you can follow to enhance the opportunity for others to come to the land, to understand the land from outside organizations that we're forced to deal with?
So one thing we did is part of the consultation of lands and environment. So we tackle on reserve and off reserve. So we deal with a lot of oil and gas. So I guess that'd be like the outsider coming in. So what we did is we did a promotional video of our culture and why we use these lands. And before we meet with oil and gas companies, we put that video on to show them this is what we use the land for. It's like the documentation. And it kind of gives them the insight, okay, they are using the lands, and we show them what we do on the lands. It's a promotional video to do with consultation. And this is kind of inform them. It's like, hey, we are doing this. Here's the video to show it. And it's kind of, it always works good when we show it first before we meet with them. And they kind of get an idea who we are as First Nations people. And yeah, we just did a promotional video and it's been working.
Great. Just if I can do one little follow-up to both of you. With that, I think both of you made an expression about economic development expectations. Like with those economic expectations, what can you give an example as to what some of your community experience expectations are along that when you get to have that consultation with outside groups? How do you depict your expectations or the First Nations community expectations to outsiders?
You've got me thinking about my position currently. I am an Indigenous engagement and knowledge specialist, and I think first the first good step forward is having Indigenous engagement people. We have a bigger understanding of our connection to the land, and so when we approach community, we understand that connection and that need, and also we have quite a more willingness to actually attend on the land, like you're asking. But when it comes to economic development needs or wishes in the community, I think for our community members, in my community particularly, it includes that sustainability and that balance for the land and that conservation aspect too. I'm not sure that answered your question, but
yeah. Good, thank you.
Any questions?
Raquella, are you still on?
Having a hard time hearing you, Weed.
Oh, sorry, Raquella. Is Raquella on?
What was her question?
We just admit now, so Raquella just joined us. If you can unmute and ask your question, and I think we lost her again.
I can ask it. Is the species program based on species listed in SARA? Are there any species that are at risk not listed on SARA but are culturally important?
Yes, strongly yes. Of course, there are species that are important, culturally relevant, and critical species to our communities that are not listed on the Species at Risk Act. Moose, for instance, is maybe an example I could use. In my lands department has been doing taking like a different take on monitoring, and they plotted out the community. They just put like lines and made plots everywhere that the lines connected. They put a trail cam. So rather than being able to attend on the land all the time, they use trail cams. And again, that's just one way to kind of prove what is on the land. And it helps because projects and environmental assessments, for instance, are just based on the Species at Risk Act. And so that guides a lot of project work or industry work. But we know that our communities have many more species that are important to us, be it for sustainability, for food, many different uses we have for many species that are not listed on the Species at Risk Act. So yeah, one that my community has spent time studying and also trying to protect and learn about is moose.
Is there anything, Elvis, you'd like to add to that?
Not really into the species at risk. We usually have consultants that do it in our areas, but not too much on our reserve. But we do see the loss of some animals, like in our area, like the porcupine and the skunk. That's from all the oil and gas activity. It could be from noise pollution to anything. So that's something we've seen from the 80s, that we are seeing some species that are kind of moving away from our area. And moose is a good one because right now our First Nation is actually doing a moose study in our traditional lands. So those are important studies to do as well.
Judy?
Yeah, I saw that when I was up in Nescapi, they talked about back in the day, there were millions of caribou across the ridge, just within kilometers of the community. And today they have to travel for 8 days by skidoo to get to the hunting grounds for the caribou because of all of the iron. I mean, Nescapi, you fly in and it's like a moonscape because of all the iron ore, which is open pit mining that's gone on over the last 40 years. I mean, I think Septio, which is the port that the train takes the ore to, probably one of the largest iron ore, or one of the largest ports in Canada. And it's just miles and miles of offloading the train into tankers or freighters to take that iron ore across the world. So, the impact of that aggregate operation or that mining operation on the community is huge. And the caribou herds are way, way down, have all shifted north. As I say, they have to travel for 8 days on skidoos in the wintertime to go hunt when they used to have them within a couple of kilometers. So.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. Judy, you had a question, the final question as well. Is Judy still on the call?
Wahida, I think you may need to increase your volume a little bit. We can't hear you very well.
Judy on the call? It's all the way up. Is Judy on the call?
I think we can read out her question. And if it is a question that others may be interested in, because I do not see Judy on the call.
Okay, I will read Judy's question. What type of project management tools have helped you in your projects? As land managers, often we wear many hats in community development. How do you develop timelines for projects? Is it done with community input or needs?
Well, this is a good one. This is a pop quiz for Elvis and Samantha to see if they remember some of the content.
It's all of the above. Because like what I mentioned before, the work breakdown structure is one program that we've been trying to get and we're going to get. It really helped. It's all about timelines, scheduling. Timelines are the best. Like,
yeah.
This is what really helped me with the project management tool, is making sure we're meeting the criteria and just getting the project done, and communication. That's all I can say. And
Precedent network diagramming?
Yes, that diagram, yeah.
Figure out the critical path.
the critical path, yeah. And oh gee, I forgot what I was gonna say now.
Sorry, Elvis.
I brain farted. But oh yeah, key thing to be successful is having all your plans in place for the First Nation. Your land use plan, your community development plan, your environmental management plan, your solid waste plan. Those really help being a lands manager. Is having all those in place makes your job a lot easier.
Or a barrier if you don't have them.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. My community didn't have those things. I was still developing those things. And one thing that really helped was project management in itself, that we could expect that any project that happened in a certain way. The certain people approved it. Community engagement happened, and then it was executed as to plan, and everybody kind of knew what to expect. One tool that I think helped me was like Kanban charts. Like, so to go along with the timelines are kind of the tools that we can use to allocate resources and make sure that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. So that was from the PMP program. We talked about the Kanban.
Yeah.
Yeah. Star for that, Samantha. There's another star for you today, Smith.
I'm going to write my PMP exam, actually. So
I'm so happy.
yeah,
That it's
I'm
scheduled.
nervous, but this reminds me that I know what I'm talking about.
You'll ace it, no problem. I know you will. You got this down.
And to wrap things up, Samantha, I'll start with you. 3 key takeaways for the audience.
Oh,
Can I start with Elvis? Elvis, would you like to start?
yeah.
Well,
Over to Elvis.
record keeping, timelines, and talking with the community. I think those are 3 big things for many projects. It's consulting with your members, right? And making sure the projects are go ahead first. Like most of my projects, I do the I usually apply for a feasibility study and a business plan to make sure everything looks good. Then you bring that to the community. Then if it's a go ahead, just keep moving forward.
Great. Thank you for that. Samantha, 3 key takeaways that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I have to agree. Having plans in place, meeting and consulting with your community, and including critters and species and your land as a stakeholder.
Wonderful. Thank
Yes.
you both. Thank you, Greg. Thank you,
And
Samantha.
protect the water. Because with my reserve, it's off the boundary list. They seem to do that. They don't include water in our reserves.
Go figure.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Greg, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Okay, so thank you all to all the attendees, our team, our speakers, for participating, bringing this webinar series to life. It's been outstanding. This is now our 6th webinar, and each one gets better, and the participation gets better, and I can't say enough about the speakers and the value that they bring to the table. So the team will be sharing top takeaways post the event. So all of the good stuff that was introduced in this workshop today will be shared. You can scan the barcode to get in touch and have a virtual coffee with me. So anytime, just click on that and schedule a meeting with me. I'd love to hear from you. I always love to hear from clients, like talking with a client this morning for over half an hour, talking about all the good stuff they're doing in community. And I look forward to seeing you all in the future webinars. And thanks once again to our participants, our speakers, my team for pulling this off. I just show up, makes it great. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for joining. Hi, hi.
Hi, hi.